Hello everyone, this is live stream supply chain analytics week 2, and today we're looking at inventory. And again, I do have a chat room, and if you want to ask questions, I can answer questions. So this lecture gets into inventory this week and preparing for the homework this weekend, which is due on Sunday. And then on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. we have our a Zoom session for office hours. So this is like a lecture. You're going to answer questions, and we'll talk about the inventory. Okay, let's bring up the syllabus. And in the syllabus, down on the schedule here we are, right here, August 24th, inventory, and August 30th is Sunday when homework 1 is due. So this is this week. This is what we're doing this week. Okay, and if I bring up Canvas, look at the course material, and if you notice what we have here coming down on the week of week 2, August 24th, live stream, and there's where we are right now, the Zoom session, and I've already posted the homework, and we'll be looking at the homework and the questions, the material for the homework. Okay, so the material for this is in the website. If you go to the website under Supply Chain Management, you come down here to Supply Chain Analytics for Inventory 2020. Find the Word file here. So let's download this, and this is the lecture for this evening. So open this up, enable editing, and here we go. Okay, so by way of introduction, I first start with I start with an outline of the material, and then the initial, I would say maybe primary takeaways. This is not everything, but these are takeaways that I'll emphasize, will focus on, and also that you'll see probably in the homework as well, and possibly exam. Okay, coming down here, the inventory model. We have different types in inventory management plan, and we'll talk about the definitions. And then we get into inventory control, where you have constant demand, just to talk about relationships and definitions, and different type of systems like periodic systems and review systems, and then stochastic demand. And stochastic demand simply means the demand is random. It's not constant, it's a random variable. And we're going to assume it varies randomly according to a normal distribution, like a bell curve, because to keep it simple, and that's not a bad. It's not a bad assumption. Of course, some demands are not that way; they're skewed. But we'll use stochastic demand to get the idea and the concept. And then we'll look at continuous review systems, where you talk about statistical safety stock and ROP. Periodic review systems, where we'll talk about the base stock level, and then the single period AOQ. Some topics are inventory risk pooling, which is something that's going to be emphasized, and over here I describe it. Echelon inventory, over here I describe it. And ABC classification, and I describe it. And so these three here really apply to supply chain inventory. Supply chain inventory moving upstream and downstream, and how is it coordinated, and also like risk pooling takes inventory and also combines it with logistics and creates efficiencies. Echelon inventory, it looks at efficiency up and down the stream simply with inventory policies. And ABC classification is control. It's control of your inventory upstream and downstream in different stages. So we'll look at that. Okay, first of all, your objectives in supply chain is you balance your high service levels with low costs and emphasize continual improvement. So the high service levels naturally would be a lot of inventory. So the more inventory you have, you can satisfy your demand and order fulfillment, and the service levels are high. On the other hand, low cost really is low inventory. Because the lower the inventory, there's no inventory costs. So when you look at cost of inventory and the service levels due to inventory, they are competing with one another, and so you need a balance in there of the low cost and high service levels. And that's pretty much what we'll look at here. These on this side over here, the outline talks about different approaches, and over here are some of the takeaways as far as the concepts are concerned. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, first of all, let me start with a model, with a picture. I think in pictures and models to help organize thinking on how things relate. Here is the supply chain: supplier, manufacturer, distributor, retailer, customer, flow of materials downstream, flow of information upstream. So if we take, and so each one of these is an operation, but if we take a distributor, only one of these stages. Now, even though I'm taking the distributor, the same thing could be the manufacturer, the retailer, the wholesaler, whatever. But when I take the distributor here, which is a very good stage to look at, then essentially we have 5 things going on that a distributor needs to look at to be coordinated with and integrated with supply chain. Okay, first of all, downstream, we're looking at the demand. And that has to do with forecasting. That forecasting will give it its demand. So we have demand. And then up here, we have an order quantity. And that's your inventory policy. And that's upstream. And that's your inventory policy and inventory control. That's how much you order from upstream in order to get inventory. Now, the inventory here is managing your inventory. And there's where you measure. There's where you have metrics on your service level and your costs to balance. And so that's where your evaluation is, okay? And I have this delta just to illustrate. There are different types of variables, constants, parameters, models that we will be using to analyze the inventory. And then this is coming, this is going from downstream to upstream. Now, upstream to downstream, we're going to receive inventory, and this has to do with sourcing. Sourcing from upstream. We'll talk about alliances later. And then we're sending downstream, and that's distribution, and that's logistics. We'll talk about that next. And so even though we have upstream forecasting, upstream order policy, and then downstream sourcing and downstream distribution, all of this has to be coordinated. Well, today, and also evaluated. Coordinated and evaluated. Today, I'm going to focus on the policy and upstream, not a little bit on forecasted demand, but mostly upstream, and then we'll look at some of the inventory analysis and evaluation. So there's the 5 things we're looking at: upstream, downstream, and analysis. Okay, inventory control. Inventory control determines the inventory policies of lot sizing and lot timing. That's going upstream, that balance the objective of cost and service levels. There's where the balance comes in, or the trade-offs. Okay, so let's get some terminology. Now, I'm assuming here that people know little to nothing about inventory control or terms or anything. I know in these courses, many of you do know quite a bit. You've been working at it. And this might be a little boring at first, but then bear with me. Sometimes it's always good to go back and review, even though you know. And if you don't know, it's good to be introduced to it. So let me just go through these definitions very quickly before I get into the meat of the material. Okay, first of all, inventory types. You have primary types of inventory, and the 3 primary types: raw material, work in process called WIP, and finished goods inventory, we'll call it FGI. Now, let's suppose in the supply chain you're building tables. Well, the raw material inventory will be the wood. The finished goods inventory will be the tables. So you have wood and then you have tables. You have inventory on both. But then the WIP inventory is work in process. Well, when you're taking the wood and making the tables, well, you're going to have partially made tables. You're going to have wood in there. And so that is going to be inventory. Well, the more efficient you are, the lower the WIP, the less efficient you are, you're going to have a lot of different inventory, different types of sources of inventory and waste within the WIP inventory. So all three inventories are important. Now the raw material has to do with sourcing. The finished goods have to do with logistics and demand, and the WIP inventory has to do with the production, the efficiency of the production process. And when the WIP inventory goes down, that's referred to as lean operations, low cost, and also low waste, and also low WIP has to do with efficiencies. Okay. Other types of inventory policy types, primary types, is the order quantity and safety stock. Now, the order quantity is the quantity of inventory you order, whether it's raw material or whatever it is, upstream. It's the order quantity. You say, I need this many tables, I need this much wood. So that's upstream orders. Now, safety stock is a routine policy, and we'll get into that today, where you'll say, oh, I don't want to run out of inventory. And my demand sometimes is stochastic, it's random, and so instead of carrying just enough inventory to meet my demand, that demand could vary. So let me carry inventory to guard against stock out or running out of inventory. And that's called safety stock, buffer stock, reserve stock. It's called a lot of different things. Okay. Supply chain types. Pipeline inventory, that has to do with logistics. In other words, when you have shipments, there's inventory on those barges, there's inventory on the rail, there's inventory on the plane. Who owns that? The source, destination, that's inventory. That's pipeline inventory. Depending on the contract, different people might own it. Warehouse inventory. If you have a centralized warehouse management system, then that inventory is traditional inventory that you're managing, okay, and that you're a type of inventory that you need to account for. But then you have something called positioned inventory, and that is decentralized inventory. Now that decentralized or positioned inventory could be in warehouses warehouses downstream. It could be in retail stores, because a lot of times retail stores will have inventory in the back room. It could be in transfer points. It could be a lot of different places. And so rather than having a centralized inventory, you will have positioned inventory so that your service level will be high, because the closer the inventory is to the demand, the higher the service level, theoretically. Okay, special types. I have two here, anticipation inventory and speculative inventory. Anticipation inventory, or seasonal, has to do with inventory that you can that is known. You expect it. You know it's going to happen. Anticipation, say, I know there's a convention coming to town. I know I'm going to need more. I know I'm going to need more inventory. So anticipation inventory, increasing inventory so that I can anticipate or respond to some type of event, for example. Seasonal means I know when the season goes, my demand goes up, demand goes down. So seasonal, I'm expecting it. So this is expected or known inventory. Speculative or hedge has to do with speculative or hedge has to do with unknown inventory. You speculate things that might happen, but you don't know if they're going to happen or not. Hedge inventory says, well, hedge is a very good example. Today, you're going to have more PPE to make sure you have enough, more ventilators, more increased number of medications. If all of a sudden the pandemic escalates, so you're hedging to make sure you don't lose. Okay, so speculative means I'm speculating something that might happen. Hedge is I'm making sure that if it does happen, then I'm safe. Okay. Could you quickly go over pipeline again? Okay, pipeline simply means logistics. In other words, in supply chain, especially commodities, sometimes when you're ordering from another country, let's suppose India is ordering from China. Well, you're ordering it. It's not going to be there in a day. It's going to take a while. Well, when it's on that barge, when it's on the rail, when it's on the truck, who owns that? That's inventory that you're managing. Okay, who owns it, who's managing it, who is controlling it. Another pipelining inventory that's important is a cold chain. You're ordering something that has to be refrigerated. Okay, well, who's refrigerating it? The logistics firm. Well, that logistics pipeline inventory has to be managed such that if it takes 6 months or 3 months or 3 weeks to get there and it's not refrigerated, everything is spoiled. And so pipeline inventory is extremely important in something called the cold chain. You have to refrigerate it. Okay. Inventory plans. I hope that's good enough. Inventory plans. Well, remember up here we have forecasting, distribution, sourcing, and policy and control. Well, forecasting has to do with variability, and that's time series, causal, and risk pooling. There's where that comes in. Distribution takeaways or service levels, okay, and that's logistics, centralized distributed, and vendor managed inventory. And so we'll look at these. Evaluation is the primary factor is efficiency, and some of the measures is going to be the turnover ratio, something called the EPP, the economic part period, which we'll define, especially when we get into ABC classification tonight. And then sourcing, supply contracts, buyback contracts, revenue sharing, quantity flexible, sales rebates. It goes on and on and on. We will not. I decided not to get into this in these courses. That's a lot more detailed oriented, and it really is dependent on the types of industry you're in, the company you have, and the suppliers you have. Now, what I will focus in on here is policy and control. Policy and control are these up here. Okay, the strategy, because here's what drives the policy and control is what drives your inventory. First, your policy, lot sizing, lot time is how much do I order from my supplier and when do I order it? Do I order one at a time every day, or do I order 10 every week, or do I order 1,000 once a year? So those two right there define what is called the inventory policy. Next is service levels. Well, you'll have, in other words, service levels says what percentage of time. So stock out. Stock out levels means service levels, stock out levels. Stock out levels refer to you have demand on your inventory, but you don't have inventory to meet that demand. So you have lost sales, lost demand. That's stock out. And so service levels mean when you have demand and you have inventory that meets that demand, that's service. And so service levels can be measured different ways. Stock out levels can be measured different ways. For example, they can say, what percentage of the time do you have full service? And what percentage do you have stockouts? You can have what percentage of inventory periods do you have service or do you have stockout? So there's all different ways of looking at it. We'll measure it one way in this course later. And then finally, the objectives is going to be cost. So there's your service levels, cost, and EOQ. We'll look at EOQ to minimize cost. We'll minimize cost, and then we have our service levels. How do we balance those? Well, there's where we come into up here your evaluation, and the EPP and the turnover together will balance your service levels and cost, and we'll see how that's done today. Okay, inventory period. You can have a single period and multiple periods. What I mean by this is that you order one time and it's gone. So you just plan for only one order and one order at a time. Multiple period says, no, I'm going to plan to order every month for the next 2 or 3 years. So how do I plan that? So planning, creating a policy for just one single inventory period, ordering it once and it goes away. I mean, ordering it once and then you're done. Or multiple periods, that's a different planning process. Inventory items, you have a single item, multiple items, and multiple items. I'll focus on ABC classification. ABC inventory, this is ABC inventory classification. Class A, Class B, Class C. Okay, and these are multiple item approaches. And there's other multiple item approaches, but they're pretty quantitative, and I think I'm going to stay practical. Inventory stage, single stage, multiple stages. For single stage means, remember last time we had an introduction to, for example, here's a five-stage supply chain model. You can have a 3-stage, 5-stage, 10-stage, 12, 20-stage. Okay. Now, what the stage here is saying, am I going to look just as a single stage? In other words, I'm just going to focus on just the distributor and that's all. Well, that's traditional operations management. Or do you look at multiple stages? And that's called echelon inventory. For example, Walmart. Walmart looks at the entire supply chain when it creates its inventory policies. How do you do that? There's all different ways of doing it. We'll look at one simple heuristic way of doing it. And the textbook goes into that. Inventory review. Okay, continuous and periodic review. What this review is referring to is reviewing your inventory. If you're continuously reviewing your inventory, a continuous review system says, I'm always looking at my inventory. I'm watching it every single day, every single minute, and then I'm acting. Periodic review says, I'm not watching my inventory. I'm looking at it and evaluating it periodically, maybe once a week or once a month. I'm periodic reviewing and say, what do I need to do? Okay, and those are two different approaches, and we'll talk about that. And finally, demand. Deterministic, stochastic. Deterministic is the same thing as constant demand, and you're determining exactly what that constant demand is. Stochastic is a random variable, is a random demand. And the word stochastic is a Greek term which refers to randomness, random variable. Okay. Okay. Here's an overview of what we're doing today. Here's the technical parts. Now, my approach is, it's going to get technical, but then once I talk about the technical side of it, then I'll say, here is the takeaway managerial side. So there's going to be two things going on, just like we talked about last time. Okay, first of all, constant demand, deterministic demand, same thing. So your basic inventory policy here, reorder point, EOQ, with a continuous review, periodic review, this is where we start. We'll start with this and define these terms and define what these mean. Then I move right into stochastic demand or probabilistic demand. I'll define the difference between deterministic and stochastic, where you have a mean and a variance. And then I go through the same thing, the order quantity. Notice up here I have the order quantity, Q is order quantity, reorder point. So I talk about the order quantity, reorder point, safety stock, and then this is going to be a continuous review system. This is a periodic review system. There's a continuous review, periodic review, EOQ, and then stochastic demand and lead time. So this last one down here, we're not going to get into this too much. I'm just going to refer to it and say we're going to deal with the demand being random, because the demand is random. Rarely do you have constant demand. You can have fairly constant demand, but usually in supply chains it's random. And that's why supply chain is challenging. But then at the end here it says, well, what about lead time? Lead time can be random too. So if the lead time is random and the demand is random, they're coming together, how do you manage both of those variables that are random at the same time? So you have a bivariate, two variables at the same time. And so that's what this is talking about. We're not going to get into that. If this is an analytics course, but if it was a true math course, mathematical supply chain analytics, and when a math liberal arts and sciences, then I would get into the derivation and everything. But we won't do that. And then risk pooling. I'm going to do risk pooling because risk pooling, it looks at these statistical safety stock in the risk pooling. Then we move into echelon inventory. And echelon is looking at multiple stages. And notice all of this is really looking at one stage, single stage. Then we go to multiple stages. Okay? And then multiple items is ABC classification. Now, all four of these is just one model. It's just variation on a theme. And the theme is ABC inventory classification. Class A, Class B, Class C. That does not mean activity-based counting cost, activity-based cost. It's ABC inventory. And here's where you get in some very, very practical techniques on how to manage inventory. So, now some people look at this, and I've been told, this looks daunting. Like, wow, okay, this is a lot of equations and numbers and everything. And my answer is, yeah, it is. But behind each one of these is a concept. And behind each concept is a very practical, logical procedure, manner in managing your inventory. And I'll focus on the quantitative part here in order to understand the managerial part. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, let's start with just the basic EOQ, basic inventory policy here, and then the reorder point and the continuous and periodic review. Here we go. Basic inventory policy, ROP, Q, and TQ. Let's look at these two equations. Now, to define this, first of all, Q represents quantity, the lot size. D is a demand rate, and T is time, and that's the inventory period. So let's let the demand rate be a constant rate of 539 per week. Now it's constant, so it could be prorated over weeks, months, quarters, years. T is an inventory period, and let's let that be 1.5 weeks. So the inventory period of 1.5 weeks can be expressed in weeks, months, quarters, years. By the way, the time units I'll only look at time units in weeks, months, quarters, and years, and that's all. Nothing other than that. Okay, now let's suppose that we have 539 in this, and so basically the Q equals DT. I'll take the 539 1.5, and so my lot size is going to be 809, approximately 809. You just multiply them together. But when you multiply them together, notice the demand is in weeks. The inventory period is in weeks. Those time units have to be the same, so be careful. Reorder point. ROP stands for reorder point. And that's the demand times lead time plus safety stock. Okay, first of all, lead time. Lead time is simply when you place an order upstream from to your supplier, the time it takes between when you place the order and you receive the order, that's the lead time. And we'll break that down later in this course, break it down into different components, but right now we're looking at just one time. If I order, what is today, Monday? If I order it Monday and I'm going to receive it next Monday, my lead time is 1 week. Now, the demand is my demand rate. Now, the ROP simply says, I'm going to continuously review my inventory, and when that inventory level reaches this inventory level called ROP, reorder point. Now let's suppose my reorder point is 100. It's like 1,000, 900, 800, 1,500, 600, 150, 100. When it reaches 100, my reorder point, boom, I'm going to order my next lot size from my supplier. So I'm continuously watching my inventory. When it hits my reorder point, I'm placing my order. That's what that means. Now SS is safety stock. Now safety stock simply means I'm carrying inventory so that I'm guarding against stock out or running out of inventory. So let the lead time be 0.2 weeks. So if a 5-week day is like 1 day. The safety stock is 10. So the ROP then is demand times lead time plus safety stock. There's demand in weeks, the lead time in weeks plus the safety stock, approximately 118. So now our lot size is 809, ROP is 118, our inventory period is 1.5. Now we can put together the inventory policy, how much to order and when to order for the continuous review system and the periodic review system. For the continuous review system, it's always ROPQ. The first number is ROP, 118. The second number is always Q, 809. So we're continuously reviewing our inventory. When it hits 118, we're ordering 809. The periodic system says, nah, I'm only going to periodic review my system. Actually, since it's constant demand, I'm going to review my system every 1.5 weeks. And every 1.5 weeks, I'm ordering 809. That's simply all that means. Okay, so let's view the concept of the these two equations with something called the Sawtooth Curve. So here's 809. Here's this slope here is my inventory level, and so it's coming down like this because as demand takes away, my inventory drops constant rate. The ROP is 118, and there it is. My safety stock is 10, so that's tiny 10 right there. That's 10, and that 10 is carried all year long. Okay, and so here I'm ordering this. It comes down, and all of a sudden the time between these orders is referred to as my inventory period. In basic inventory, what assumptions need to be considered to apply that concept? Well, there's a number of assumptions. I'm not sure what concept you're talking about, but there's a number of assumptions that we're assuming here. At this point, we're assuming that the demand is constant and there's no variability, there's no error. We're assuming that once we receive, we're going to receive it in exactly when we receive it, like in 1.5 weeks, or lead time is was it at 0.2 weeks. We're going to actually receive it. There's no error there. We're assuming when we receive it, there's no damage. There's no it's not late. There's no damage, and so we don't receive the whole lot size. So there's a lot of assumptions here, and those are real things that do happen. We're assuming it's a perfect world, okay? Because right now I'm just looking at the concepts. Now, once you understand the concepts, that's going to really create your primary policy. But then once you start implementing this primary fundamental policy, then you have all these things start happening. Is that what you mean? I think that's what you mean. I hope that's what you mean. Okay, now the lead time between when I place the order and I receive the order, that time right there is referred to as my lead time. And the time between orders, here I place an order here, place an order here, place an order here, or I'm sorry, receive an order, receive an order, receive an order, receive an order. That's my inventory period of 1.5 weeks. When I place an order and receive an order, that's my lead time. Okay. So in a continuous review, okay, here's the takeaways. Now notice what I do here. What I do down here, great woman. These are my takeaways. So notice how I'm doing my lecture. At the bottom down here, it's kind of like shaded. Well, these are the bullet points that I want you to remember as far as managing in supply chain. So this up here is the fundamental background, but then here is the takeaways. In a continuous review system, when the inventory level reaches ROP, order Q. In a periodic review system, every T time periods, order Q. Definitions. The safety stock guards against stock out. Stock out is unmet demand. Stock out does not mean you have zero inventory. It means you have demand on your system that's not being met. That's stock out. That's extremely costly, and that's something that people do not want. Okay? Order frequency is the orders over time. Like if you place 3 orders every week, the order frequency is 3 per week. Inventory turnover. In this case, it's just your demand rate. So the inventory turnover rate is the turnover demand divided by the average inventory. Okay, in other words, the turnover, the way I'm defining it here, which is legitimate, it is a definition. Since there's no negative inventory, the turnover simply says whatever inventory comes in and goes out of my inventory, that's turnover. And notice my lot size is, my lot size is 809, okay, but my safety stock is 10. So notice what I'm saying here. Okay, watch this, be careful here. This might be misleading. I'm saying my lot size is 809, and it is. This is 809, but it's 809 from my safety stock. So my safety stock of 10, up to there, that interval right there is 809. Now this level here is 809 plus my safety stock at 10. So it's from 0 here up to that point, it's going to be 819. But my lot size is 809, so that's from 10 up to here is 809. Okay. Now, since 809 came in and 809 goes out, 809 comes in, 809 goes out, 809 comes in, 809 goes out, 809 is going to be my inventory turnover. I'm turning it over, turning over. That's the definition of turnover. But the turnover rate, on the other hand, is your turnover divided by your average inventory. So if my turnover is 809, that's what's coming in and going out. What's my average inventory? Well, I take my average inventory, I take my turnover, divide by the average inventory. That's called my turnover rate. So the inventory turnover rate, sometimes that's called the inventory turnover ratio, sometimes it's called the turnover rate, turnover ratio, turnover index. It's called all different things. And as a matter of fact, sometimes in some companies and industry, that's called just the inventory turnover, which technically is not correct. It's the turnover rate. The turnover rate is an average. It's an index. The turnover simply says, how much am I turning over? Okay. And a lot of people call turnover, when they say, oh, the turnover is they mean turnover rate. Okay. And that is a metric. That's a metric that's going to be important. The higher the turnover rate, the less inventory you carry, and so people strive for high turnover rates. Okay, for low turnover rates. They turn over quickly. Okay, and so they comes and goes. And so essentially the way you do that is just simply lower your inventory. If you lower your inventory, you lower your average inventory, the turnover rate, you turn over very, very quickly. Okay, greater turnover rate implies lower inventory levels, lower investment in inventory, lower risk of obsolescence, greater quality control because you don't have as much inventory to examine, greater product control because you have just less inventory to control your product, but greater risk of stock out. So, turnover rate, because remember, if you order smaller lot sizes, that means the average inventory is smaller. And if the turnover, which is your demand, your lot size, whatever you order, that doesn't change your demand. The demand comes from downstream. You're getting 100 a week every single week. That's your demand. You got to meet that. How do you meet that? Do I order 200 at a time, 100 at a time, 50 at a time, 10 at a time? Well, the lower the lot size, that demand's not going to change. The lower the lot size, if this lot size gets lower and lower and lower, the denominator gets smaller, your turnover rate goes up. Okay, so a greater turnover rate implies a lower inventory levels because you're ordering less. If you have lower inventory levels, you'll have lower investment in your inventory. Lower risk of obsolescence because you're not going to run out. It's going to be turning over fast. Your greater control, quality control, because you're controlling if there's a problem, you have like 3 things to look at, not 3,000 things to look at, okay, or to examine, or to rework. Greater product control. So even though your inventory control is quality control, you can have greater control over your product that is downstream, but greater risk of stock out. Okay, so you have to be really careful because the higher turnover rate, the greater risk of stock out. Now, between carrying cost of inventory and stock out cost, the stock out cost usually is, people have estimated, 8 to 10 times greater than carrying cost. So stock out costs are huge because the cost is more than the cost, and the risk is more than just monetary. The risk could be, the cost could be monetary, lost sales, it could be lost market share, It could be lost customers. It could be lost image, branding. Maybe upstream lowers the efficiency of upstream because you have a lower reputation. Okay, and so stock out is inefficiencies, and so you don't want that. And so sometimes people will order more than they need to make sure that stock out doesn't hurt their brand and their ability to run a business. Okay, but how can you lower the inventory, lower the cost, and still maintain service? Efficiency, technology, and we'll look at some, and also design. We'll look at that too. Achieving benefits from increasing the turnover rate by lowering lot size implies good knowledge of demand. The sharper the demand, the more you can meet it. Lead time, the sharper the lead time, the better that you can manage it. And unit costs, if you know exactly what your costs are. And I'll show you ways you can back out what those costs are. Some very clever ways of doing it. To sharpen your costs. So in other words, what this is saying is, the lower the variability of your downstream demand, upstream lead time, and unit cost, the less the demand, the more you know exactly what they are, the better you can manage it. And so we'll be looking at all three of those things. Okay, there's your takeaway from the beginning. This is the kind of things I want you to remember. And all this stuff up here is to help you remember why that's true. Let's go on. Okay, constant demand determinant. Let's look at EOQ. Okay, now first of all, EOQ, here's the equation, but this is only one EOQ equation. I want to emphasize the fact that economic order quantity is not an equation. It's a concept of minimizing cost by a break-even between your ordering cost and carrying cost, your upstream ordering cost and downstream carrying cost. Well, upstream lead time, downstream demand. It's minimizing the sum of those two. It's a concept of minimum cost, break-even. Okay. So if we're looking at cost, we have to say, okay, well, here's our unit cost. This is how much the item costs. And then the ordering cost, it's how much it costs to place an order. It's not placing an order for one unit of item. It's how much to place an order for one order. It's the cost of one order. And this is the carrying cost of one item of inventory. Okay, now notice, if I can take this acquisition cost and multiply it by the turnover or the demand, I call that my total acquisition cost. That's how much inventory has been turned over in dollars. Here's the total ordering cost. If I can take my total orders over a time period times how much each of those orders cost me to order, that's my total ordering cost. My average inventory times the unit carrying cost is my total carrying cost. Okay, if I add the ordering and carrying cost together, that's called inventory cost, because notice my order frequency and average inventory is dependent on my inventory policy, my lot size. This up here, it doesn't matter how much you order, the demand's the demand. If I add all three of these together, that's going to be my total cost for my inventory. Okay. Here comes EOQ. Here comes the concept of EOQ. Let's assume the safety stock is 0 for a second. Okay, it's 0. Now let's take this equation. My total cost is my carrying cost plus my ordering cost plus my acquisition cost, all three of those. Well, my carrying cost up here, notice it's my average inventory times my unit carrying cost. I'm bringing this down. My ordering cost is order frequency times my unit ordering cost. I'm bringing this down. Okay, and then my acquisition cost, my total items, which is my turnover, times my unit cost. So my average inventory with a safety stock of 0 is Q over 2. That's my average inventory. You start with Q, end with 0. Q plus 0 divided by 2 is your average inventory. Order frequency is going to be my demand divided by how many times I place an order. I mean my lot size Q. Well, my whole demand divided by my Q gives my order frequency, D over Q. And finally, my total items is just my turnover. Now notice this total cost is saying, oh, okay, well, this first expression, the total cost is linear in Q. The second expression is inversely related to Q. Q is in the denominator. The third expression I get excited here. There we go. The third expression is independent of Q. Okay. So I want to solve for Q. I want to know Q, which minimizes my total cost. Okay, I'm sure some of you are very familiar with this. Use calculus, take the derivative equal to 0, solve for Q. And the base, I'm going to do that in here. Can if you want to. But that's how it's done, by the way. And by the way, that's how it's done. Calculus. In this case, in this particular case, a lot of EOQ models uses calculus to determine the lot size. And I know there's some undergrad programs and some grad programs that say, oh, you don't need to know calculus. We're not going to use calculus. We're not going to use it to calculate things, but you do need to use it to understand things. Calculus is used every single day in almost everything you do. All it is optimization and efficiency. If you don't use calculus, then you're not going to be doing a lot of things. You can't drive a car. You can't. Anyway, there's a lot of things you can't do. Anyway, that's I get off my soapbox. So notice this, it's the square root of 2 times my demand times my unit ordering cost over unit carrying cost. Now let me give you some graphical concept here to give you a little bit of graphically represent this to get the concept. Okay, first of all, notice here's my cost and here's my Q. This is my lot size Q. This is my cost. Okay, now this line right here, see this linear line coming up here, nice and linear, it keeps going up and up and up. When Q gets bigger, it gets bigger. That's my total carrying cost. That's this equation right here. So therefore, as Q gets bigger, my total carrying cost gets bigger. Now this line right here, this nonlinear hyperbole here, it's a reciprocal. And so therefore, this is my total ordering cost. That's this equation right here. Now, if I add these two together, remember if I add these two together, that's my total inventory cost, ordering and carrying. I add these two together, and that gives me this line right here. So therefore, right here, I'm saying, okay, well, if I want to minimize my cost, this minimum cost turns out to be right here. And that's going to be where these two cross, so the cost is the same. And that Q there is called EOQ. So at EOQ, the total carrying cost equals the total ordering cost. And let me say for safety stock equals 0. Oops. For safety stock equals 0. Okay. But I said that up here already. But just reminding you what it means. Oops. Okay. Oh, where'd I go? Where am I? EOQ. Messing around with this too much. There we go. Okay. Now, before we go on down here, let me point some things out that's important here. This concept is key to understanding the basic fundamentals of minimizing cost and inventory. Okay, there's a number of things I want to pull out from this graph. So let's sit here for a little bit and let's camp out here. I want to show you some things. Okay, first of all, if I know what EOQ is, I can order that and minimize my cost. What if you don't know what the ordering cost is, you don't know what the carrying cost is, those are unknown. If you don't know what those are, then you can't calculate EOQ up here. You can't calculate it. You don't know what EOQ is, and so therefore you can't do it. But from this concept, notice that these are equal at EOQ. So even though you don't know the unit cost of your carrying or unit cost of ordering, you can certainly calculate the total cost based on a lot size and the total cost of your ordering based on lot. The carrying cost is your warehouse. So what people will do, what consultants will do, is pick a random, let me just pick a number out of the air, 100 items. So Q here is 100. I'm placing 100 items. When it goes away, I place it again. When it goes away, I place it again. When it goes, I keep doing this for a year or a quarter, whatever. And during that time, I'm going to keep track of how much that is costing me. Well, that's easy to do. Okay, the money is going out the door. Okay, and so you know what your carrying cost is then. That's a known. That's a known entity. But then again, every time you place an order, this is your order frequency. Well, you can say, how many times do you place this order over a time period? Well, I start counting them up. How many invoices do I have? How many purchase orders do I have? And then you say, well, this is how much my ordering cost is costing me. So you have your total carrying cost and your total ordering cost, and then you say, okay, are they equal? If they're equal, whatever that Q was, that's optimal. But what if the carrying cost was more than the ordering cost? Well, if the carrying cost is greater than the ordering cost, that means I'm over here. That means my Q is greater than EOQ. That 100 is too big. So I take that 100, I decrease it to 90, let's say. And if you do, and you measure it again, these costs begin to come together. You say, oh, it came together. Let me jump to 50. It goes like this. Oh, let me increase it. And so essentially, the carrying cost is directly related to Q. If Q increases, the carrying cost increases. It's inversely related to Q for the ordering cost. If Q increases, the ordering cost decreases. So you keep moving these until they're equal, and boom, there's EOQ. And that's how consultants, it's called the least total cost technique or algorithm. And so people will do, consultants come in and they do that. They don't worry about measuring unit costs. They'll just change these things and get the total cost, and they got their EOQ. You want EOQ? There it is for those items. And it's very effective, very efficient, and notice you're not estimating anything. You're measuring, and those measurements are pretty accurate. As accurate as the costs are, the total costs, then the lot size Q is accurate. Suppose you did that, okay? Then you say, okay, let me do that, and then let's suppose I did that, and safety stock is 0. Safety stock is 0 and all this stuff, because I'm talking about the concept. Safety stock is 0, and let's suppose that, let's say EOQ was 200. Now at 200, the total cost of each one of these is $500, and the total is $1,000. So 200, they're equal. And each of them are $500, 500, together they're 1,000. And so, okay, fine. So if I'm ordering 200 and my carrying cost is 500, then what's going to be my unit carrying cost? Okay, if this is 500 and Q is 200, 200 divided by 2 is 100. 500 divided by 100 is what? 5. So my carrying cost is $5 per item. So you can back out the unit carrying cost. And I said we'd do that, and here it is. And let's suppose the ordering cost is 500 and you ordered 10 times. You ordered that 210 times. Well, if this is 500, if my order frequency is 10, what's my unit ordering cost? Well, 500 divided by 10 is $50. There you go. So I know what my unit cost is. Now this is a single item. Two more things. This is a single item. You do this for each of the items. Okay. For example, and here's some experience that I've had. The For example, I go into this company for consulting, back when I was a consultant. I said, we need some help with our inventory. Okay, fine. I said, can you give me these numbers? Oh, yeah, our IT department, our computer people, they're great. They're fantastic. Okay, give me these numbers. I said, okay. And so they gave me all these numbers. And so what I did was, took these costs, I took the lot size, took the invoices, took the orders, and I did that analysis on each of the items. It wasn't hard to do because they gave me all the numbers I needed. And so my carrying cost here, suppose the carrying, say, what was it again? It was $5. Well, the carrying cost should be approximately $5 for all of them, and it pretty much was. And the ordering cost was around $50 per order, and that's about what it was. That was pretty good, except for one group of items, the ordering cost was an anomaly. So they gave me the numbers. I went home. I went to my office. I worked on them. I came back and I said, yeah, I think I have some things to help you with. Before we get going, I found some problems. Oh, really? She says, yeah. What problem? I says, well, you know, the average, approximate average order quantity from your purchasing department, from your buyers, is about $50 an order. Okay, that sounds about right. Except for these actually it was, I think, 3. But let's say these 5 items, see, it was 3. These 3 items over here, it was more than that, let's say 3 items. But these 3 items, you know, if you look at all your items, it goes 50, 50, 55, 55, 52, 53, 48, 49, 48, 50, 55. These 3 items are like 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 per order. Now go, there's something wrong with these items. They're way too expensive. Something is wrong. It's out of whack. Either the numbers are wrong or there's something wrong in your purchasing department and your buying department, their buyers. He looked at the items, he looked at me, he smiled, and he said, okay, now you know, I know, the president knows. It was a privately held company. The president knows, but no one else needs to know. I said, needs to know what? Those 3 items are ordered by the president's, let's say the president's son. He orders those items. His president tells him, he says, look, buy them from the supplier for retail, sell them to the customer at wholesale, and these are high-ticket items, and I'll give you a commission on the sale price. And so we're losing money head over heels. I said, why would you do that? And he says, it's a way to give his son an allowance and make him work for it. I says, oh my goodness, there's millions of ways. Anyway, I said, it's a privately held company. I'm done. That's okay. You do what you want. I started walking away. But this brings up a number of extremely important points. 1, these numbers paint a picture. And behind this picture, there's reality. And they can show you a lot of what's going on in a company that's inside the company that you can't see from the outside in. This gives you a glimpse of what's happening inside. 2, once you see that, sometimes that moves you into the areas of ethics. Ethics and operations is a big topic because you're going to see what people do and what people don't do, because the numbers will show a pattern. They will show procedures and policies and what people do. So here you talk about ethics. And so this is pretty powerful. It's not just lowering cost. You'll actually see what's going on in the company. So there's a lot of things you can do. So let's go on. Oh, one last thing. Let's suppose we order too much or too little. If I order too much, let's go from here to here, well then the cost increases from here to here, it increases that much. But what if I go from here down to here? Well then it increases this much. Well, if you order too less, the cost increases much faster than if you order too much. The cost is just slightly more. So where's the greater cost risk? Ordering too much or ordering too little? Ordering too little. That's why people order over order, because the extra cost is not that great. Your carrying cost and order cost, the inventory cost, is not that great of an error. If you order too small, then the cost begins to go up much faster than ordering too much. And so that's why people stay on the right side of this line, because the risk is much lower than being on the left side of the line, because the cost goes up faster. Okay, takeaways. At EOQ for safety stock, the ordering cost equals the carrying cost. For a Q greater than EOQ, the carrying cost is greater than ordering cost. For a Q less than EOQ, now you're going to see this a number of places. I'm just saying, if you're over here, these costs are different. You'll see this a number of places. I know I'm going to have it on the exam, so just be aware of it. Be used to it. Okay, the only other thing I want to emphasize here is something called the economic part period EPP. And now's a good time to do this. So notice what I'm doing here. Here's my EOQ equation. Now follow my logic here. Here's my EOQ equation. Okay. Now, let me square both sides to get rid of the square root. So I have EOQ over here, EOQ over here. I square this so the square root goes away. 2 times D times C sub O over C sub C. Now, let me divide both sides let me divide through by 2D. Okay, so I have EOQ over 2 and EOQ over D. And the right hand side then is just this ratio, C sub O over C sub C. Now, let's take this expression, come down here and say, let me take the EOQ in the numerator. Let me take the EOQ over D, move it in the denominator. If you do, you take the reciprocal. So that's D over Q. Okay, and notice EOQ over 2, Q over 2, let's back up here, Q over 2 is the same as average inventory. D over Q, EOQ is the same as a Q. D over Q is the same as order frequency. Okay, and so essentially the EOQ over 2 divided by D over EOQ is the average inventory divided by your order frequency. But then again, that equals this ratio of the ordering cost to the carrying cost. Now remember, this is at EOQ. Okay, therefore, something called the EPP, or economic part period, is this ratio of ordering cost to carrying cost, which is EOQ squared over 2D, or the average inventory divided by the order frequency. This right here comes from this graph. So this graph and the relationships in a graph, in pictures, can be expressed by the EPP right here of optimality. So the EPP, or the economic part period, here is where you use the EPP with the turnover rate and balance these out. There's where the balance comes, with cost and service level. And it's not just turnover rates, it's turnover rate and the EPP. So the EPP based on EOQ yields the optimal EPP. So this is optimal. This is optimal because we have EOQ. Now what if we're not optimal? What if we're not optimal? What if we're up here somewhere and we have an arbitrary Q? We can still calculate this, and that EPP will not be optimal. But notice the EPP will be directly related to the lot size. Actually, it's the square of the lot size, so it's enhanced. Okay, and so as you move closer and closer, if it's too large, if you move closer and closer, it's accelerating to the minimum cost. So the EPP has much more sensitivity of evaluating your strategy because it accelerates to the optimal policy. So your average inventory over this ratio that deviates from the optimal will increase the total inventory costs. There you go. So there's some takeaways. And it's this EPP, economic part period, this is what we will use when we get to the ABC classification here in within the next hour. Okay. Now let's go to stochastic demand. Okay. First of all, stochastic demand simply is a demand that follows a normal. I'll use a normal distribution. There are other distributions, but we'll stick with normal because it's a good distribution to start with. What I mean by normal, mu is the mean of the distribution. Sigma squared here is the variance of the distribution. The square root of the variance is the standard deviation of the distribution. Down here. Bell curve, that's what it looks like. Okay, this is the distribution, that's what it looks like. Okay, so let's back up. So this is kind of like a summary. Order quantity is Q equals dt, but instead of d, I'll take the mean of the distribution. The stock out level, ROP equals d times the lead time plus safety stock. I'll take the mean of the distribution. So before just the constant demand rate, now it's the mean of the demand. Now, but here's where it changes. The safety stock is called statistical safety stock. Here's where we start talking about stock out levels. And this, we'll talk about the Z, sigma, lead time, and alpha. We'll talk about that. So this is the summary here. And then the reorder point is the safety stock here is and the lead time is combined to where here's your demand times lead time plus your statistical safety stock. So there's the expression for ROP, and we'll interpret all of this stuff. This is the continuous review. Periodic review is something called the base stock level. Then we have the continuous review, periodic review, okay, a single period, and then we'll talk about stochastic demand, stochastic lead time, and risk pooling. So this is just a summary. This is what we're getting ready to do, so let's do it. Okay, again, let me develop this step by step. First of all, statistical safety stock. Okay, here's my x. Let's let x be my demand. It follows a normal distribution with a mean of mu. So x sub d is my random variable. It follows this normal distribution, the bell curve. The mean right here is mu of d. Let me get this right. There you go. And there it is. And the width, the spread here is a function of the variance. If this variance is smaller, it gets shallower, narrower. If it's increased, it gets broader. But the ratios are the same with the normal distribution. Okay. Now let's look at the Sawtooth Curve. Now remember, in the Sawtooth Curve, we have the demand safety stock is 0. So ROP is the demand times lead time. So the inventory level comes down. We have our ROP, we have our lead time, and we come up again. But you say, well, when this comes down for a continuous review system, and that's what we're doing, continuous review, when I hit my ROP, I'm placing an order. So during this lead time, if my demand is stochastic, then the demand during the lead time follows a normal distribution where the lead time times the mean and the lead time times the variance. Okay. And then you say, wow, okay. Then if that's true, then now my demand during lead time is it's a normal distribution, but the numbers are different. Okay? Because the demand per week, month, quarter, what a year is different than the demand per lead time. If the lead time is 1.5 weeks, what's my demand per lead time? That's different than the demand per year. Okay, and then down here you say, okay, and there's my variable. Okay, and then you say, oh, then I go through the deterministic, and there's the ROP. Okay. Let's derive the statistical safety stock. Okay, so here's my demand. Here's my demand during lead time. So both of these can be transformed to something called a standard normal, where Z is you subtract the mean and divide by the standard deviation. I can do that both for the demand and the demand during lead time. We're going to do it both. Okay, so for the demand here, I'm going to have that expression. For the demand during lead time, I'll have that expression. So we're not going to get too much into this, that's why I'm going fast. But the Z then has a mean of 0 and a variance of 1. So this page is just introducing the Z variable. And how do you get to the Z? You subtract the mean and divide by the standard deviation. That's all you do. Okay, and that's how I use this. Okay, let's derive this real quick to show how it works. Essentially, let me show you this down here. So here comes the sawtooth curve, and notice here's the mean. But here, this line here is the actual demand because it's a random variable. It's coming down. Boom, right there, we place an order. Now my demand during lead time, when I have safety stock in here, then I'm saying, well, you know, I'm going to have stock out. If my demand during my lead time exceeds this reorder point, there's my safety stock and there's my reorder point. So I'm saying, okay, if my here's my stochastic demand, here's my reorder point. So the stock out happens when the demand exceeds the inventory during inventory period. For example, suppose my ROP is 155. And my lead time, what's my lead time? My lead time up here, here somewhere. Right here, lead time is 0.2 weeks. So during this lead time, if my demand, it's random, it can be large, small. During that lead time, if my demand is more than 155, I'm going to have stock out. Okay, if it's less than 155, then I'm fine. I'll have extra inventory. But this is random. So I'm saying, okay, my demand, the stock out is when the demand exceeds the inventory during an inventory period. Adding safety stock will lower the risk of stock out. So my demand during lead time is given by that random variable. The stock out level is the probability of having stock out is when the demand during the lead time is greater than the ROP. Well, the ROP is given by that expression, so I'm taking that and putting it down here. So notice what this says. When my demand during my lead time is greater than my ROP, I'm going to have stock out. And the probability of that, I'm going to call that alpha. And the probability of stock out, I'm going to define as the stock out level. There it is. So I'm saying, well, I'm not deriving that here. I don't want to derive it. I derive it in the video. And by the way, maybe I should have done this before. Let's come to here. Let's go to my website here, mdharper.com. Come to supply chain management down here. This video right here goes through the statistical safety stock in detail, single period base stock level. So these 3 videos pretty much present exactly what I'm talking about right now. So that's my stock out level. So I'm going to go through and here's my definition of stock out. When the demand during the lead time exceeds my ROP. But I'm going to solve my safety stock to say I want my stock out level to be, let's say, a certain 10% or something. So that I solve this. If I solve this, I'm not deriving it here. I'm just saying if I go through, it can be shown that the safety stock is equal to Z times sigma times the square root of lead time. Okay, and now if I let the lead time is 0.2 weeks, alpha is 10%, Z is 1.282, and this comes from Excel. Then the safety stock is going to equal approximately 47, and ROP is approximately 155, and that's how I came up with it. Okay. You know, guys, I put this together, and now that I go through it step by step, it doesn't seem that clear to me. I don't think it's, I get an uneasy feeling that it's not very clear. Let me think here. And then I go into base stock level, then risk pooling. Wow. So what I'm doing here is going through the mechanics. It's not a derivation. Okay, I'm not really too happy with this. Here's the idea. And by the way, I'm pretty sure in my video, in this video right here, let me open this up. Let me mute it. Welcome to the. I can come across here, I know. Yeah, right here it's 6. Right here I'm saying I place the order or receive the order. Okay, and I come across here. The safety stock guards against stock out during lead time. And then here I say there's my stochastic demand. And then I actually derive it here. And now I start deriving it. And I do it in detail. So the video will go through and actually derive this in detail. Now what I'm doing here tonight is not the derivation. I didn't want to do the derivation. I wanted to do the calculations. So what I want to do is emphasize this safety stock here. I want to emphasize the takeaways. Now I kind of remember why I did this. I did this a while ago, a year or so ago. I don't want to derive this. The derivation's in the video. You can look at it if you're interested in derivation. I don't think it's important. The concept is important. The takeaway is important. Essentially, I'm saying if the demand is more than the ROP, then I have stock out, and the probability of that happening is the stock out level. So the stock out level is 1 minus the service level. And as the safety stock increases, the service level increases, and the stock out level decreases. Well, that should be logical. If you have more safety stock, it's harder and harder to stock out. In other words, if you have no safety stock, well then the probability of stocking out is pretty high. But if you have a million items in your safety stock, the probability of stocking out is almost 0. Okay, so as the safety stock increases, the service level increases, and the stock out level decreases. Okay, but as the safety stock increases, the inventory cost increases because you're carrying more inventory. But the stock out costs decrease because you lower the probability of stock out. The optimal safety stock is at break even between these two costs. And so the optimal statistical safety stock is saying, well, when you have your inventory cost and stock out cost, when these are a break even, there's the safety stock that you want to achieve. Now that's going to be dependent on your stock out cost and your inventory costs. Okay. And 2, since the statistical safety stock equals this. Now this right here is going to be important. You'll see this in the homework, you'll see this in the exam, you'll see this in industry. The statistical safety stock will increase as the service level increases. It increases as the demand variability increases, which is sigma, or the lead time increases, which is the lead time. Okay, but let me point something out here. The service level is 1 minus the stock out level, and alpha is the stock out level. So, got to be careful. as the stockout level increases, the safety stock decreases. And so the safety stock is inversely related to alpha. But if the demand variability increases, the safety stock increases. If the lead time increases, safety stock increases. Well, that should be logical, right? The more uncertainty you have, the more safety stock you want to guard against stockout. The longer the lead time, the more uncertainty you're looking at, the greater the safety stock. But what about the stockout level and service level? The greater service level, you want more safety stock. Well, the greater the service level, the smaller the stockout level, because they're inversely related. Okay, reducing costs must balance service levels with demand variability and lead times. The service level, 1 minus alpha, with the demand variability and the lead time. You have to balance those three things. Managing demand variability, managing the sigma here, how do you do that? Risk pooling and forecasting techniques. So your demand coming in, your forecasting techniques to sharpen that up, and risk pooling, which we'll look at here in just a minute. Managing the lead times, how do you do that? By centralized information, electronic ordering, and information sharing, and vendor managed inventories. So the lead times. Well, when the lead time is you're ordering it and then they're satisfying the order. So there's two parts to it. It's the information lead time and then the delivery lead time. Well, the faster they can receive the order, it shortens the lead time. The faster you can deliver that shortens the lead time. And so the centralized information, then, they can control this in electronically, in information sharing, so everyone knows what's going on. Okay, and the vendor managed inventory, the vendor up here is managing your inventory, so it's very efficient. It lowers your lead time. If it lowers your lead time, it lowers your safety stock and lowers your costs. Continuous review, computerized monitoring, for example, low mean. So when do you use this? Computerized monitoring, when you can monitor things continuously through technology. For example, you have a very low mean but a high variability in your inventory. In other words, you don't need a lot, but there's a lot of variability, high variability in your demand. Continuously review it all the time. Stay on top of it. Review it consistently. Because it's a low demand, you need to review it consistently. But high variability, you're going to be very careful to make sure that your safety stock will monitor the demand. Okay? Now, before we go on, one more thing I should have put in here. ROPQ. If your variability in your demand increases, then which one do you increase, the lot size or the ROP? Well, notice it's the safety stock, which is in the ROP. Safety stock is not in the lot size queue. So as your demand variability increases, increase the ROP. You order sooner. You don't order more. Common mistake. When the volatility of your demand begins to increase, they go, we need to order more to guard against stockout. That's wasteful. It's costly. No, we order the same amount, but you order it sooner. The ROP increases, the reorder point increases, we order it sooner. So you manage the variability with your ROP, not with your lot size, because the lot size is a function of the inventory period, which is the mean. The variability, the ROP is a function of the variability, and if the variability increases, the ROP manages that. Same with the lead time. Okay, that's a important takeaway that you'll see multiple times in this course. We'll see it again in logistics. Base stock level. Now the base stock level is different. I just want to give you the concept here. Again, I'm not going to do the derivation. I kind of got tripped up last time I started going into the derivation. I didn't want to do that. Here's a concept. Now we have a periodic, where are we? A periodic review system. With stochastic demand requires an inventory policy at varying inventory levels at specified inventory periods. In other words, the inventory period, here's the inventory period T. The inventory period is fixed. It's not variable. Okay, the lead time is fixed, but the demand is variable. So, when you have a periodic review system and stochastic demand, how do you do this? Well, the base stock level, which is a good way to do it, is that, and this is very common, you have a base stock level right here, this point right here. And this is an inventory level. Suppose it's 1,000, suppose this base stock level is 1,000 inventory items. So periodically you're going to review your inventory right here. So here's your inventory position. Now inventory position in the book, they define it in more detail. To keep it simple, the inventory position is just how much inventory do you have. They put a lot more variables in there. Let's keep it simple to understand how this works. The inventory position is how much inventory do you have. Okay, and let's suppose your base stock level is 1,000 items up here. Okay, and then here you're reviewing your inventory. Oh, my inventory position, how many items do you have in your inventory? I have 100. Well, what's your lot size? How much are you ordering? Oh, 100 up to 1,000 is 900. I'm ordering at 900. That's all there is to it. Now, you're going to observe the inventory position. You're going to calculate the base stock level, and that difference is your lot size Q. So in the base stock level in the periodic review system, the whole calculation is just whatever this base stock level is up here. What is that value? You're calculating one value. Because the inventory period is fixed, that's given. Lead time is fixed, that's given. Okay, and the inventory policy is order from the inventory position up to the base stock level. So let's suppose here, what are we doing here? Suppose your base stock level, here it is 1053. Your inventory period is 1.5 weeks. So essentially your inventory policy then is order from your inventory position up to 1053 every 1.5 weeks. Okay, and let's suppose the first time every 1.5 weeks comes along, you say, okay, my inventory position is 53. Okay, I'm ordering 1,000. The next is 153. Okay, down after 1.5 weeks, my inventory position is 153. I'm ordering 900. So whatever my inventory position is, you order up to 1053. There are different versions of the base stock level, but this is our version to get you used to it. Okay, here's the calculated. Here's the calculation. Here's the takeaways. The base stock level is it's the mean times the inventory period and the lead time together. This is the Z times sigma times the square root of the inventory period and the lead time together. So the safety stock and the base stock level are very similar. But for the safety stock, you only have T here and lead time down here. For the base stock level, you have T and LT in both places. Okay, again, you'll have the derivation in the video. If you're interested in the derivation, it's not important for supply chain management or analytics even. The base stock level increases as the mean demand increases. Okay, as this increases. So you will increase the base stock level if the demand increases. If the service level increases, if the variability increases, if the inventory period increases, in other words, if all of these increase, the base stock level will get bigger. So the base stock level increases as the demand increases, demand variability increases, lead time increases, inventory period increases, service level increases. All those will increase the base stock level. Okay, base stock level primarily addresses service level, not cost. A relationship is observed between high service levels and high inventory levels. A relationship is observed between high service levels and shorter lead times. And it is observed that a decreased inventory period can decrease demand uncertainty, resulting in increased service levels. And finally, demand variability can be managed through risk pooling. So we will manage this next. So the base tech level addresses the service level, not the cost. So here are these relationships that have been observed with the different service levels. Okay? In other words, as a service level increases, okay, well then your base tech level increases and the inventory levels increase. Okay? But as it has been observed that if you have very high service levels, you want shorter lead times to satisfy that. You don't want long lead times, you want shorter lead times to satisfy those service levels. Because shorter lead times, you have better service levels. Okay, because I need it. Okay, I'll get it to you a year and a half from today. No. I need it. So the service levels increase satisfaction with shorter lead times. Okay, periodic review, establish consistent monitoring. Okay, now notice here's when it's used. For up here you have computerized monitoring. For periodic review you have consistent monitoring. You want to monitor your inventory consistently. That's when the periodic review kicks in. So now you have a high mean with low variability, and so it's a high mean, low variability, then you're very safe at very consistent monitoring then. With low mean times high variability, you have to be on top of it, and so you have continuous review systems. In general. Okay, inventory risk pooling. Here's the concept behind risk pooling. Inventory risk pooling aggregates inventory through upstream centralized inventory to service multiple downstream demand channels. For the same service levels, inventory risk pooling will usually lower safety stock, lower average inventory, lower inventory costs, and increase efficiency. That's why they do it. Okay, but let me show you what that means. Consider two distinct inventory channel configurations. Okay, the dual stochastic inventory demand. So you have demand here, and this is the same inventory item. So this demand is satisfied by this warehouse's inventory. So this X1 is stochastic demand. The demand 2, the same inventory level, a different warehouse, but it's the same inventory. And I have a different stochastic demand. So here's the idea. We're in Denver, right? And so you have a demand in Aurora and a demand in Broomfield, and you have a warehouse here which is down around Aurora with stochastic demand. The same inventory item is in Broomfield with a warehouse in Broomfield. You have two different warehouses. That's costly. It's the same demand stream in Aurora and in Broomfield, and what happens is that the demand variability here, it's the same demand. It's the very same demand. Well, the means are a little different, the variability is different, but it's the same demand. It's the same inventory item. So you're looking at this and you say, you know, it's the same item. Why not have a centralized inventory between Aurora and Broomfield and satisfy both of those demands from one central warehouse? And that's called risk pooling. You're pooling the risk together. You're pooling the inventory together to pool the risk of stock out. Very simple, common, but as it turns out, this is more efficient. This type of centralized will usually lower the safety stock. You need less inventory, lower the average inventory, you less average inventory in your warehouse, lower your carrying costs, it's cheaper, and you increase your efficiency. The idea of stock out is lower. So this is much more efficient. It's not just convenient, it's efficient. Okay, so what I'm doing down here is illustrating the analytics. Here we go. Suppose each inventory period has a 10% stockout level. Of course, Z then is this. And the same lead time. The lead time is the same for both, to keep it simple. Now consider the safety stock for each inventory in each configuration. So for this configuration, let's reduce this, let's cream down here. For this configuration, each of these are done separately. Here's a safety stock for the first stream for inventory 1, and the safety stock for inventory 2. There they are. So let's let our demand here then for this inventory be the sum of those two. Then this follows mu1 plus mu2 and the standard deviation of the two streams together. Okay, then you're going to have a safety stock for this one safety stock for this inventory, which is your Z, your alpha stockout level alpha 10%. But this standard deviation here is not necessarily the sum of these two. The lead times are the same. Notice the lead times the same. The only thing different is this variability. Sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 1, 2. So the safety stock here, the only difference is the variability of the combined inventory. So consider a safety stock comparison between sigma 1 and sigma 2. You add those two together because both of these represent your safety stock, and the combination here of sigma 1, 2, because that's the only difference between your safety stocks. Okay? It can be shown that sigma 1, 2 will always be less than or equal to the sum of the two. Therefore, this safety stock will always be less than the sum of the two. Okay, but notice the lead time is the same. The stockout level is the same. The service level is 90%. Everything is the same except I have a lower safety stock to accomplish the very same efficiency. Lower safety stock, lower inventory cost. The inventory risk pooling will usually result in lower inventory levels for the same service level. Or the inventory risk pooling could usually result in lower inventory carrying costs for the same service level, or for the same inventory level you can have lower stockout levels and higher service levels. So if you can have lower inventory for the same service level, you can go the other way. You can have a higher service level for the same inventory. The lower the correlation, okay, now we get into when is this? When do you do this? The lower the correlation between the demand channels, the greater the cost savings. Well, let me illustrate this. Okay, if we look at the variability here and the variability here, the comparison of the two. Now, if this demand stream X1 is identical to the demand stream X2, then there is no savings. Then the sigma 1, 2 is equal to the sum of the two. But if X1 has a demand stream which is a little bit different than X2, they're not perfectly correlated, then what happens is this becomes more efficient. Okay, and you're going to have a problem in the homework along those lines. Okay. Now I have an appendix down here at the bottom. Appendix A, Appendix B, no, where's it at? Appendix B, here it is, Appendix B. I go through, you can look at Appendix B for you math aficionados, and here I actually demonstrate what I just said. So I go through the, and I have an example here. For example, here's two different streams. The correlation here is 50%, so it's not 0. I mean, it's not 1. Okay, there's some correlation here, but it's not perfect. Okay, I sum the two. Okay, here's the mean. The means are the same. Here's the variance. Okay, but here's the standard deviation. The standard deviation here, this standard deviation will always be less. This standard deviation of the combined will always be less than the standard deviation of the two added together. And that difference here is a function of the correlation. And I up here I derive it. Okay. And then down here I illustrate it. And that is when the standard deviation, when the demand correlation goes from a -1 to a +1. In other words, when they're when they're very uncorrelated, okay, and they're going to highly correlated, they're the same, then what happens is the standard deviation, the advantage goes away. But when that variability, when the correlation becomes very inversely related, then the savings increase significantly. And this will be on the exam, and this is what you think of. So when do you do inventory risk pooling? When you can pool two different demand streams and the correlation is not one. If the correlation is, they're perfectly correlated, they're the same, there's no advantage of pooling. But if the correlation is different, if it's negatively correlated or different than one, as the correlation comes down from one, the savings go up. And so the less correlated they are, the greater the savings. And so there's what you need to remember. And that's the takeaway from risk pooling. Okay, next, let's come back up where we were before. Here we go. Echelon inventory. Okay, in echelon inventory, all we're doing here, this is not optimal. This is a way to do it. And essentially, you'll have something called echelon lead time is a lead time plus all the lead time downstream. That's all you're doing. Okay, let me illustrate what this means here. The echelon inventory, when the echelon inventory position is at or below the echelon reorder point, then the order the appropriate lot size queue. Okay, let me illustrate with an example. Let's let the demand for stage 1 be stochastic, was 539 point per week, and there's a variance, and then the stock out level is 10%. Okay, now let's let the ordering cost for stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3. We have 3 different stages. Stage 1 is downstream, and stage 3 is upstream. So here's ROP. So the examples here says, okay, well, let's look at the ordering cost. We have different ordering costs for each one. We have different carrying costs for each one. Okay, and now, but we have the same demand for each one. So let's look at EOQ. Here's your demand. Here's your ordering cost, which is different. Here's your carrying cost, which is different. So we do this for the lot size for each stage. Okay, we do this, and here we have 809, 925, 9983. Okay, now let's look at, that's going to be EOQ. Now let's look at the lead time. The lead time for stage 1 is 0.2. In other words, between 1 and 2 is 0.2, between 2 and 3 and its supplier is 0.3. So this lead time here really says, where'd it go? Here it is. When I order from my stage 2, that's my lead time. When stage 2 orders from stage 3, that's my lead time. When stage 3 orders from its supplier upstream, that's its lead time. So each of these has a lead time upstream. And there they are. Okay, that's the lead time between stages. But then the echelon lead time for a stage is the lead time of that stage plus all downstream. So for the lead time of stage 1, which is it's all the way down to the end, downstream at the end of the supply chain, is just the lead time. But for the stage 2, it's the lead time 0.5 plus the downstream. You you accumulate the downstream lead time with your lead time. For stage 3, your lead time is 0.3 plus the downstream lead time of the 2 downstream. So these are called downstream echelon lead times. Now the ROP, essentially, you just take those echelon lead times for each one. So remember, it's 0.2, 0.7, and 1, 0.2, 0.7, and 1, 0.2, 0.7, and 1, and essentially, again, what you do is change the ROP. So up here, the actual lot size, 809, 925, 983, that doesn't change. But the echelon lead time reorder point does change. And so notice the further upstream you go, you adjust that uncertainty, you adjust the echelon inventory policy with ROP, not the lot size. Again, okay? You see a theme here. So in supply chains, it's the timing that you change, not the lot size. The lot size keeps a low cost. The timing then will satisfy your echelon lead time, will echelon inventory, and the variability and stock out levels. Okay, here you have a single period EOQ. This happens quite a bit in supply chains. You have a single period. And essentially you say, okay, I'm going to order at one time. Well, when does this happen? Well, sometimes it happens when you're just ordering it just one time and it's going to be gone. You never do it again. Or when the lead time is extremely long, like 6 months, that can consider it a single period. Because in 6 months, so much can happen. Okay? Well, here's how you analyze you only order it one time, and the next time you order it, you'll consider it again. You do a reevaluation. So this is a single period, not multiple period. Okay, we're assuming stochastic demand during that period. And now you're looking at our long cost, the cost of inventory remaining after a period, where the lot size is too large, you ordered too much. Short cost, where the demand is not satisfied during a lead time, you didn't order enough. Lot size is too small. The demand is greater than the lot size. So here, the derivation simply is, I'm taking my short costs, and the probability is when my lot size is less than my demand, then my demand's greater than my lot size, then I'm going to be short, right? So that's times my short cost. But when my demand is less, when my lot size is more than my demand, then I'll be long. There's my long cost. So then what I do, I define my demand greater than my my lot size. That's the same as my stock out level. So remember, you're stocking out when your demand is more than your lot size. And that's this ratio of my long and short costs. So I'll define my stock out level, alpha, as my demand greater than my Q, but then that Q I'm going to calculate is such that the probability equals this ratio, and that's my optimal. So my break even then is where I have my optimal lot size Q. For single period, you're ordering one time, so there is no ROP. You're just looking at your Q, and that's all. Okay. The probability here is the same as, so this I'm deriving it. So how do I derive my Q? I'm deriving it here. I'm not going to go through it but it will be that equation right there, the mean plus my Z times my standard deviation. So for these values, let's let the demand be a mean of 539, a standard deviation of 82. The short cost is 27, long cost is 3. And so I get my alpha here, my service level, my stock out level, and I calculate my Z. And by the way, this Z comes from the from Excel. Then the EOQ is given by this equation. And so my inventory policy then is 644 by the equation. Takeaways. Since the EOQ is this, the EOQ will increase as the demand mean increases, as the service level increases, and as the demand variability increases. So a single period EOQ, the unique inventory policy, that's when you use it. Rapidly changing product design, you're ordering at one time because the design is changing. The variable cost parameters, they're changing so rapidly you do it one time, or very long lead times. So this is when you use single period EOQ. Okay? Now, the last thing is going to be ABC inventory classification. Now, before I do this last one, I modify these courses every semester. And this last one is a good one. ABC classification is important. Let me pause here and let me just comment that having gone through this for almost 2 hours, I'm realizing how much information this is. Do you share that with me? I've covered a lot of ground here. So let me, before I finish up with one last thing, let me address that. I'm presenting this material one time. My office hour is Thursday. And then you submit the homework. I'm beginning to realize the very first week I'm doing this, right at the beginning, this is not, I don't like this design. I'm going to change this. Hey, we got to be flexible. Down to here, when we talk about agile supply chains, let's talk about agile course design. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm changing the design of the course today. I'll make an announcement I have 13 concurrent viewers here. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I think I have more in the class than that, but I'll make this announcement. What I'm going to be doing is this. One simple change that'll be, I think, an important change. And that is this. I'm not doing office hours on Thursday at 7. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is another live stream. But the reason I'm doing that is this live stream on Thursday night is I'm going to go over the homework. Because what I'm doing today, this right here is a lecture. Okay, this is a lecture. Okay, this live stream right here, and let me make this bold. This live stream is going to be the homework. Let me spell it. Let me get my fingers right. Is a homework. Okay, this is what I'm changing. Here I'm presenting the material. Here, I'm applying the material in the homework. Because when I go through this, I went through it pretty fast, but I'm going to go through it again Thursday night at 7 for the homework. But what I'm going to be doing is saying, oh, here's how what we covered, here's how it's applied. And when you see it applied, they'll say, oh, that's what that means. And I should have done this in the original design. Now I'm seeing, I think this is going to be better. Let's try it. And if this doesn't work, we'll try something different. Okay. Now, as far as the Zoom is concerned, we'll have a Zoom right after this Thursday homework. In other words, right after this, I'll stop, I'll open a Zoom session, and you can ask questions about what's happening. So we'll double up here. I did this in the summer. It worked pretty well, but I realized that I need another live stream to apply this material, especially for inventory, logistics, relationship information. Now down here, not so much. But up here, I'll be talking about quantitative analytics here these first few weeks here, especially 1 and 2, and then information strategy. I'm going to be talking about analytics these first homework assignments. So I'm going to do this, okay? I'm hoping, hey, a chat room, I'm hoping you guys are okay with this. But before I do the Thursday here, I have one more technique to cover, and that is ABC classification. This is an important one. Here's the idea behind inventory classification. Okay, something called a SKU item. A SKU item, let me spell this right, that's usage. The SKU item is a stock keeping unit. A stock keeping unit. Stock keeping unit is just the barcode. Like in the barcode, this is the ID. It's the inventory item ID. Okay, SKU 5, stock keeping unit 5, has a usage of $73,728 over a year. This is the turnover in dollars. In other words, SKU 5. I don't have an item here. And where's my inventory item? Here's my calculator. Well, I took off the barcode. Okay, this has a barcode. Okay, and this barcode say, oh, $73,728 came in and gone out over the year. Okay, that's my turnover. Well, I rank order. Okay, I only have 10 SKU items. I rank order these things. I take the total, I divide through to get percentages. Well, since I rank order them, the highest percentage is here, the lowest percentage is here, and then I'm going to say, okay, how many SKU items make up around 80% of my usage? Again, I misspelled it. I don't know why I misspelled this. Okay. How many items make up approximately 80%? Well, the first 2 SKU items make up 80.9%. That's close to 80%. And it's not exact, it's random. Or it's close, it's approximate. Well, that's 2 out of 10 items, so that's 20% of my items, 80% of my usage. I'm going to call those my Class A items because they make up over 80% of the dollar value of my inventory. Those A items, I'm going to put a lot of my effort into those items to monitor them, to manage them. Okay, I'm going to be analyzing them. I'm going to be maybe having contracts with my suppliers. So a lot of effort goes there. With the next 10 to 15% of my usage here would be 90 to 95. I'm saying, arbitrarily saying, well, 90% would be 2, 95% approximately would be 3. The next 3 items is going to be my B items, which is 30% of my items, which is 13.5%. In other words, 94.4 minus 80.9 is 13.5%. And then the last 50% of my items, 5 or 6% is my C items. Okay, now the reason I classify them this way is because my SKUs 5 and 8, my SKU items here, make up my Class A items. I'm going to focus most of my effort on those 2 items. Now my C items down here, these are my C items. These are my staple items. These are very low ticket items. I'm going to order in bulk, order like very large lot sizes, very infrequently, over 6 months. These are my paper clips and paper and pencils and erasers, that kind of thing. These are my high ticket items up here. Now the ones in the middle here, okay, I don't have as much effort as my A items, but I don't just order in bulk like my C items. My B items are things like, okay, I might have a identified catalog that is certified. Say you can order from this catalog up to a certain amount, whatever you need. So I have some control, but not near the control of the A items. The reason I do that is a way to coordinate my inventory policies in a very large number of items. multiple item inventory. I did this years ago, and this company, it had like 220,000 items. You're not going to do this on each item. You have to group them. Okay, and we group them. So if we reorder these SKU items from 1 to 10, and take the cumulative percentage here, and plot this, and you see a line. You have a line that looks like this. Well, 80% here then is approximately 2 items. The next 10 to 15% is the next 3 items. Then you have your 5. Okay, so let's go a little deeper. Let's do a cost analysis of the ABC classification. So let's take this classification of 2 in my A items, Class A items, 3 in my Class B, 5 in my Class C. And then what I want to do here is let's add up the usage. Add up the usage, add up the usage. If I add this together, I'm going to have this usage in my A items, my B items, my C items, and this is the number of SKUs. Now let's assume that we have an ordering cost of $40 per order, a carrying cost of 25 cents per dollar per year, because these are in dollars. So let's evaluate an inventory policy of 1084, which represents the annual order frequency. So 1084, put it right here. So what this says is each one of these items I'm going to order 10 times over the year. That's my order frequency. So if each of these is ordered 10 times, 2 times 10 is 20. So my Class A, Class A items, I'm ordering 20 orders over a year. 3 times 8 is 24. My B, I'm placing 24 items in a year. 4 times 5 is 20 items in a year for my Class C items. Each one of those items, SKU items, each one of these items here for my C, each one of those, I'm ordering it 4 times a year, every quarter. Okay? So I add them up. I have 64 items. But each one of those costs $40 to order, so 64 times 40, my total ordering cost is $25.60. Now, if I'm ordering 10 times in a year, if that's my order frequency, and this is my demand in dollars, I can divide that by my orders, and that gets me my inventory. Half of that is my average inventory. So my usage divided by my frequency divided by 2, that's my average inventory. I'll leave that for you to convince yourself that's true. I add that up, and there's my average inventory over a year. Each one of those dollars cost me 25 cents to carry, and there's this times 25 cents is my total carrying cost. I add those two together, I get my total inventory cost. Now, notice that these are not the same. My ordering is more than my carrying, so it's not EOQ. Oh, okay. Then if I want EOQ, I want those costs to be equal. So my objective then, and that will be a minimum, my objective then is determining my order frequency, determine those 3 numbers that will minimize my total inventory cost. So I'm combining my total EOQ with my ABC classification. I'm not deriving it again, but I'm giving you the results. And there's the equation. Okay? Where I'm taking the square root of my usage of that class, divide by 2 times the number in the class times the EPP. Ah, here's the EPP. I want to minimize my cost. My EPP is a ratio of the ordering to carrying cost. Interesting. Well, my ordering cost is 40, carrying cost is 25 cents, so my EPP is 160. So I'm going to calculate my order frequency for my A items by taking my annual usage, my number of SKUs, right there's the number of SKUs, and my annual usage. Okay, and my end then here is 2, 3, and 5. There's 2, 3, and 5. Okay, 2 times 2, 3, and 5. And there's my EPP. and I do the arithmetic for each one, I get 12, 4, and 2. So I'm just doing the arithmetic. So I've derived this, and then I apply it. Well, I go through the same cost analysis of my orders and my average inventory, and notice my ordering cost and carrying cost is equal now, and so this becomes my optimal inventory policy. Not expressed as lot size, not expressed as inventory period, expressed as order frequency. Because the order frequency will identify your lot size and your inventory period. Interesting. But the EPP is 160. But remember, the EPP is this ratio, but it also is the average inventory, or the average inventory divided by the total orders. So if I take 3840 divided by 24, I get 160. Same for my B item and my C item. And let me ask you, if I take 7360 divided by 46, will I get 160? Yes. Because everything is coordinated. Everything is equal. So there's EPP. So at EOQ, my EPP will be the same for every class in my inventory ABC classification. Every class will have the same EPP. Then it's balanced. This is called a balanced economic inventory. And I'm going to have two problems in my homework that's based on this. But what I'm not doing tonight, I'm over the time. I took too long. What I'm going to be doing is looking at the appendix. Okay, here I'm doing an item inventory. Here I do economically balanced inventory. I'll be doing this in the homework, the live stream on Thursday night. Okay, I tell you what, I need to adjust this. Way too much material. I know some of you might go, "Whoa, I'm lost." Well, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to redeem myself Thursday night when I talk about the homework. So when I start working these problems, I say, "Oh, here's how this is used. Here's how this is used. Here's how this is used." Then you can see the practical application and how this can be used within a supply chain. Okay, I've realized how much material there is here, but I'm going to try to redeem myself Thursday night on the second live stream. Hey, I want to appreciate everyone for sticking with me. We'll see you Thursday night at 7 p.m. Another live stream, and I'll be going through the homework. Okay, but let's see here. I'll be looking at this homework here. If I download this, open this up, this is what I'll be doing Thursday night, increasing this and going through each of these down here. So you have these statements. I'll be here's my constant demand. Down here is going to be my, I do the same thing. Remember on the what I'm doing here, I've mentioned this before. I'm going to have the quantitative part, and then for the international business, the qualitative part. I do the same thing down here for the quantitative part, qualitative part. But I'll be doing both of these. Version A, version B. Version A, notice this is version A, version B, on and on and on. Okay. And I'll be talking about each one of these on Thursday night. So here's going to be the application of what I talk about today. Okay. And then 9 here. Oh, now 9, I'll be talking about this on Thursday night. I won't talk about it now. There's some very cool things here, and we'll discuss these Thursday night. Okay. Well, that's all I have for tonight. It's more than what I should be doing. It's a lot. But there's a lot more than this. This is the basics. Okay, so supply chain analytics is a big topic. I have a lot more to cover the rest of this semester. Now, as far as inventory is concerned, I'll be focusing on inventory on Thursday night on how to apply what we've talked about today. So you can go through the videos. There's 3 videos. and look at the homework, but I'll be working the homework with you. I won't work it all the way through to the answer, but I'll show you how to work it and then stop before you get the answer and let you finish it. So Thursday night will be how to work it. Okay, so hopefully together we can get through this. Sam, is that how, let's make this larger. Is that how the exams will work as well? No, I won't have version A, version B, but it'll be kind of in between. You'll do some quantitative, but nothing like the analytics part. So the exams will be kind of like somewhere between version A, version B of the homework. Okay. Yeah, it won't be a version A, it won't be a strict version B, it'll be somewhere in between. So you kind of have to understand the analytics, but you won't be doing the analytics. You have to understand the actual qualitative part in version B. Most of it will be version B. Okay, it'll be closer to version B than version A, put it that way. But there'll be some quantitative material. Okay, like how do you apply this? And how would you change the application if the stock level increases, that kind of thing. And by the way, by the time we get there, let's bring that up. By the time we get to this, if you remember in the explanation up here, during the review exam for each exam, an exam study guide will be provided. In that exam study guide, I'll tell you exactly the kind of questions that will be on there to come in prepared. So you'll know how to prepare for it. I don't want the exam to be a surprise. There's a lot of material in this course. And I've always said from my other courses, if I make a mistake, I want to make a mistake covering too much material. But I want to cover enough to where you can do it. I don't want to cover so much you can't do it. I'll cover it to where you can do it. And this exam study guide says this is what you come in prepared to do. And the way I do that is says here's the types of questions I'll be asking, here's where you find the answers, this is what I'll be doing. Okay, so that's why I want this to be very doable, very doable. A lot of material, but doable. You can do it. Okay. Okay, that's all I have for tonight. It's probably plenty. Now, between now and when we meet Thursday night, look at the homework, look at the videos. You can review this video. This will be rendered as a video tonight before I go to bed. I have to wait for it to be rendered as a video. It's 2 hours long, 2 hours and 10 minutes long. But between now and Thursday night, review that stuff. We'll do it again Thursday night, and we'll learn a lot this week. And so hopefully the homework on Sunday, you'll be ready for it. You'll be good with it. So between now and then, though, between now and Thursday night, we've got some work to do. But also, I want to remind you to be safe. Be safe out there. Don't take anything for granted in this pandemic. Be safe. I want you to be here for the whole course to learn as much as you can when we're together. I'm here for you to learn, and I want you to learn a lot. It's not for me to teach, it's for you to learn. So learn as much as you can, so stay safe out there. So take care.